the newest one here, wants to just say hi and a little bit about yourself. But yeah, usually start by, Roy, if you want to give maybe like a couple seconds of how this even came into your idea to write this book.
Yeah, of all things, the idea of a radio woodworker, it was Garrison Keillor, of all things. He was doing his radio show, and he had and of course it has the live audience. And I was listening to it one evening, and they had a whittler on stage with him, and he was whittling a character with just a character carver, he was. And he said, well, here he is, our radio woodworker on stage. And that was it. I said, oh, man, that's great. Because I'm a TV woodworker. What if you could, which is pretty easy. You just show folks how to do stuff. What if you were a radio woodworker? What would that be? And the gag that all you had to do was just do the sound effects and never make anything came into my head. And then combined with the stories from my father, who worked in that building in the 30s, and that's how it all came to be. Now, I must say, the original, the novel was, you ever heard novelists talk about how many rejections they had? Maybe it was 6, maybe a dozen. Try 35 rejections on a novel. And the fact that you kept submitting it after 35 rejections, or that there are 35 agents out there that you could possibly send it to. But then Chris Schwartz, of course, saw it, and he thought it was a joke. He just saw the poster I had made for it, and said, "What's that? Is that a joke?" I said, "Oh no, it's here. It's in the drawer." I said, "Oh, I'll publish that." Little did he know. So that's why we're here. So one of the things about it is, if you have any questions about anything, whether you wonder if it was real or not, the incidents in there are pretty meticulously accurate. The church in Paris where the women were listening to an organ recital that was hit by the German cannon. Visited that church, and you can still see the places where they patched with cement the ceiling that collapsed on them, injuring all the women that are in the story. The one thing, the folk festival on the mountain, that happened, and that was real, and it was used, oddly, in the 1930s. American folk life was used as a nativist right-wing angle. We think of folk music and stuff as being, very progressive, and Pete Seeger and all. In the early 30s, in the 1930s, just like in Germany, the folk of America was used as a nativist, anti-immigrant, a very unprogressive movement. So that was another fascinating thing to me.
Well, I will jump in and just say I appreciated a lot of the local color, because I was born in D.C. and have lived most of my life just north in Maryland. So when you brought up things like Glen Echo and Department of Agriculture and Greenbelt. My son did his internship in college at agriculture over there. So it was all this kind of interesting sort of local flavor that I didn't realize you had roots here. It was kind of cool.
In D.C., yeah. I grew up in Northwest D.C. And you can see how much effect we have for the place. Yeah.
When your show opens, you're carrying your toolbox like in town somewhere. Where is that? Is that here, or is that?
That's Raleigh, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and some in Durham, North Carolina. So it was shot various places around the area. So all of that's done in North Carolina, around the in the Raleighwood studios.
Great.
Yeah. As that Glen Echo, I'm old enough to remember when that was. It was still segregated, and the demonstrations outside to desegregate this amusement park outside of Washington, and that was a tough angle to get at. That they'd be okay with a black person coming into the amusement as long as he was an African and some kind of royalty. Well, that's okay. If he was an American black, no way. So it was the psychology is pretty wacky.
Yeah. Well, it laid kind of dormant for a while, and it sort of was resurrected as an arts center. So a lot's going on there with little yurts have been built for artists, and there's swing dancing in the old Spanish ballroom. So it's an art center now, which is really nice, and everybody's welcome.
You can have dance in the Spanish ballroom there, where that scene takes place. So you can go to all these places that are in the book. That the tower where Calvin's shop is, of course, is a national park site. And I believe you can still go up the tower and see where the shop is and see the clock on the 4 walls around it. It's a pretty cool place. Yeah, they were going to tear that building down in the 30s because it just didn't belong. It still doesn't belong.
I was going to ask if that impending doom of that demolition was something that you just kind of added, or if that was real.
No, they were trying to tear it down. And, the fact that he comes in and they're fixing the faces on the clock. That was from Colonial Williamsburg. I remember somebody said, oh, they're painting that building over there. It means they're going to tear it down in 2 weeks because the departments don't talk to each other. The paint department has a schedule, and the tear it down department has a schedule.
It made sense, and I just love the metaphorical and realistic clock ticking and painting, and I was just, it kind of, there's a lot of rushing around in this, and I feel like Calvin is maybe always a little bit late to something, which I can relate to.
Yeah. Time goes backwards when you're inside the clock. It was a lot of fun to write. 5 years, folks. 5 years. Writing that thing.
So when did you start on it? Because I know it was published in 2014 or something around then. Or no?
It came out. You can tell because it had the worst timing, as happens. Trump bought the building, and so this is. You've read it. It's pretty much an anti-fascist comic novel, if there is such a thing. Mm-hmm. And then Trump
with measured drawings.
It becomes very unpopular. Yeah. So that's what it was. It timed it just when it came out. The building goes to become the Trump International Hotel. And oh gosh, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
So I don't know what year that was. Let me see. I just happened to have. Let me see, but it was written all from 2001 to 2005 or so.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it sat on a shelf until Chris Schwartz saw it. So, you got something, you just leave it out there for Chris to find. And you're good. So it says 2014 is when it came out.
That's a long haul from 2001 to 2014 to actually
Yeah.
But also, I'm not a writer, so I don't know the publishing schedules typically.
Oh,
but,
it's
yeah.
It's a treat.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like a good idea at the time. It did. Well, look what else I've got here for you to see. This is you see it?
Nice.
That is a robot. That's the one she had. Catherine has there. Robot from that year, and it is.
Wow.
So it's that fast frame. Everything's right with that. And talk about it. This is 1937. There's a lot of immigrants, people trying to get out of Germany, and you can't bring cash with you. And so every immigrant is coming with, Leicas around their neck like crazy. And people are buying them of course, so they can get some money once they get here, if they're lucky enough to make it here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of resonance with the current times here. I wish there wasn't. But it was backlash against the New Deal in 1937. Trouble in Europe, had Lindbergh and the sympathizers. But it's supposed to be a comic novel, so there you are.
Yeah.
Well, who else is a writer here? You're a writer. Yeah. I'm pointing.
Yeah.
I'm pointing to.
Yeah, Owen's a writer.
I am.
For Fine Woodworking magazine, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Newly minted, but I have been writing for them for a little bit. But, the publishing thing is, I worked for a small publishing company a while back. All my tools got stolen once when I moved to Colorado, and I had to get a job, so I temped at a publishing agency and loved it. But it is, Roy, it's like I worked there in 2010, and it was like titles from 2001 were finally coming around to be published, and they're like, oh, we finally got all the clearances and all these things, and it is kind of a wild ride. Even the magazine, will shoot stuff and it won't go in for like a year, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
So that 10-year gap does sound pretty wild, but then I'm like, okay, I guess it makes sense. I can see it.
Well, it came pretty quick once Chris saw it. It was my giving up on it. I kept sending copies to Nick Offerman. I think has 5 copies because I keep sending them to him because I want him to do the movie.
I mean, yeah, he would be the right person to do it.
Well, but at the time, we were having fun thinking of casting, and Calvin would be John Cusack when he was younger.
Young John Cusack.
Now we're all older, so.
Yeah, who's the Gen Z cast for Calvin Cobb? We got to workshop this.
Yeah, I don't know that Timothy Chalamet might work. Calvin.
Timothy, we gotta DM Timothy on Instagram. Say, hey, dude, we got an opportunity for you.
Is he in the? I don't see Timothy.
No, he's not here.
He had to miss this week.
Yeah.
You know how he is. Where you see me now, I'm in a what's called the Miller's Cottage, and you see the timbers up above and all of that. We were hit with the flood from Chantal, just a tropical depression, and wiped out the house down here where we normally live. And my shop has 6 feet of water in it. I've yet to even begin recovering the tools out of there. Everything, it's incredible. So don't build on a floodplain.
Yeah. That's devastating.
Unless it's an old mill, which is what I live in, an old water-powered mill.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things is sad with the flood. It's not my tools because they can be replaced. They're generic. But one of the things I have was chests of tools that belonged to specific woodworkers from the 1860s, 1850s, 1830s. And all their tools are in there. And it's like a lifeboat traveling through time with the passengers still in there, some of the passengers still in the lifeboat on the sea of time. And they've made it this far until they got to my shop and the flood came. And I'm still trying to recover them.
How do you come across those like antique tool chests?
People know I'm interested, and they said, "Where can I get rid of these?" Now, one of them is a hot potato. Of all things, somebody said, I have got this. Nobody wants this. It's the tool chest that belonged to the man who did the house for Robert E. Lee at the Washington College when Lee, after the war, went to become the president of the university, the college in Lexington, Virginia. And I said, oh, okay, well, nobody wants to take these. So well, the thing is, they were, because Lee was so revered at the time, Mr. Cummings, was the joiner who was working on the house, he kept meticulous notes, worked on General Lee's window shades and the window casings today. And he was very proud that he was doing the house for Lee. Well, of course, he kept meticulous records, and it survived along with all of his tools. So it was a wonderful record, day by day, of this 1868 joiner in Virginia, where those tools got under 6 feet of muddy water, and so trying to recover them. But again, nobody wants, you see why it's a hot potato, because of the association. It is interesting, there are handrail planes in there. Mrs. Lee, she had rheumatoid arthritis and needed handrails and first floor living. And so there was a lot of handrail work done to accommodate her illness. But anyway, that's, people just know that I'm interested in this. And say, I can't get anybody to take this. Would you take it?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of history and stuff, I feel like most of us, woodworkers are pretty interested in the historical record and all the stuff like that. But I was curious if this Calvin Cobb era, the late 30s, if that was why you chose to set your story in that, if that was a historical era that really called to you, or if if you have yeah.
Why 1937? Yeah, and everything. Yeah. Oh, there's the cat. Now we have a cat.
We got lots of cats in the club.
Aww. Oh, that's great.
So
excellent.
Cute.
Excellent. I don't know why exactly that year, 1937. Why on earth? I mean, it worked out. I know everything that happened every day, every radio schedule for that year. Oh, man. It's hard to figure why 1937, but I knew I wanted, it'll come to me tonight.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'll think of it. Well, anyway, there's one thing I wish I had worked on with the book, was to strengthen on Gabriel Valentine. There's a thing about voices, and remember, Calvin gets in trouble because he's not hiring a Negro to do Negro voices, and so he gets in trouble because of that. And so he gets a Negro to do Negro voices, as they say, and but he does a white voice instead, the old grandpa. And becomes extremely popular. I wish I'd strengthened that line, and he becomes extremely popular. I will tell you what the real story on my father told me that I loved as a kid. He worked with the Agricultural Adjustment for the Department of Agriculture, and they would send checks to folks who were cotton planters, who saying they were restricting so they were trying to adjust the farm prices by supporting farmers when the crops were too abundant and they needed to reduce them and so forth. And he said, we sent $300 to a woman who was supposed to get $30 for her cotton allotment in Arkansas. And they wrote to her, and so this really happened to my father. He said, wrote to her and said, we need this money back. That was a mistake. You should have gotten $30. And she wrote back this long letter that, I've put into the book there, saying, I knew it was wrong. It couldn't have been right, but I asked our minister, and he said that the Lord had directed President Roosevelt's hand to send this money to us, and I'm able to put a tombstone on my husband's grave, and some is going to the church, and that's mighty good. And I knew all this stuff, and I knew Mr. Roosevelt would be happy if we had it. And it's, oh God, we're going to just bury this money somehow. And so somehow actually $270, the federal budget they had to bury it so nobody would know. Maybe that was the beginning of the deficit. I don't know. It was my dad who caused it. But anyway, I love that story about how they couldn't, they said, oh, we'll just hide it.
I'm curious what made you choose the name Calvin.
I don't know if it was Calvin and Hobbes, probably. Does it Calvin Cobb, Calvin and Hobbes?
That's what I was wondering, because my son's name is Calvin, and it's not something you come across a whole lot. And we have an agricultural background, and he has a friend named Hobbes, and so it's kind of always in my head, Calvin and Hobbes. And so when I would first read the book, I had to train that out of my brain. Cobb.
Yeah. I bet it was Calvin and Hobbes that made me do Calvin. I was just talking about this earlier today, thinking about the book and thinking about tonight. Calvin is there, and because he's a guy, he's put in charge of these women because he's male, and he's in charge. Well, he's younger. He has much less competence, and these are super women. The women who volunteered for overseas service in World War I, thousands and thousands of women volunteered for overseas service. Well, they cut down, like 300,000 volunteers to 300 through testing, just brutal testing to get the sharpest folks over there. So those are the women he's supposed to be in charge of. Good luck, Calvin.
That's one of the things I really appreciated about the book. You have this character, and he's surrounded by all of these wonderfully strong and brilliant, just smart, bold women. That was you. Did they all come from your imagination, or were any of them inspired by other stories that?
Yeah, they're inspired by people I knew. In fact, that I remember one of the things that inspired that, the women's shelter in I worked at Colonial Williamsburg for a long time, and one of my colleagues, she was driving the truck to go to the women's shelter where no men were allowed to know where it was. And they were bringing extra blankets and, just kind of surplus bedding and things that the hotels at Williamsburg were divesting themselves of. And she was talking about how it's great, all of us women, I'm driving the truck and we're loading the truck and, they're getting to be all whatever that is. And that stuck in my head when I was thinking about these women. Yeah, they're pretty cool. And it was true. They were these women in the First World War who were overseas, super competent, all trained nurses. They had to be able to do everything, 10 times better than any man, as you know. And they were at that church, and it was hit by a German shell, and many were injured, and there was no military compensation or support for them, no pension, nothing. They wasn't official. So they were just, you're on your own after this. So their previous, the guy who was ahead of Calvin, he hired them and created this department so that they could keep working and have some support and independence. And they were kind of this wildcat department, the lost department in the Department of Agriculture. It's great.
That was so great. drove him crazy, but he was also so protective of them.
Yeah, he's trying. Yeah, and they're you know, you can barely keep up with them. And yeah, I love the out at Greenbelt where they're testing the manure spreader with the turbo tractor. Well, there was a turbocharged tractor that Ford came out with. And so they're testing a manure spreader, and it just blasts stuff everywhere. And I love the gag where they, all the pipe hands that had to go back to the home ec department to catch the. Yeah, it was great. So I studied manure spreaders. It's fun.
So there was actual research on manure spreaders on your end?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah, and that's the gag, of course. You know, it was broadcasting manure and so forth. And so, you know, these in the subplot of this, you know, these women developed the proximity fuse and the digital computer in this story. Mm-hmm. The music was incredible, of course. You know, Benny Goodman and the Benny Goodman and Bela Bartok. Oh, that was the hard thing to write. I'm sorry, I've gone off on that. It's not a movie, but this is the hardest part of this writing. Was she plays the Bartok Romanian folk dances on the piano, and mm-hmm. trying to describe that music in words. That was the hardest part of the whole work there. The music was a huge part of this, and all these radio shows. You love them. It was a wonderful time, mm-hmm. And a horrible time. It's just like today.
That's how it feels sometimes.
Well, let's see what else I've got here for you.
I was curious about where the the folding ladder project and that whole kind of story that led up to it. Because the funny coincidence was your network, PBS. I was watching some cozy mystery the other day, and that was right involved during the murder with one of the folding ladders that got.
Really? Okay. Yeah. There's one at Monticello that Jefferson had. There's one at, I think, a later one. I don't think it's an 18th century one at George Mason's place in Virginia. But yeah, it was quite a gadget. That was fun. Yeah, what was it? The ladder that saved, that helped George Washington escape from the cruel Hessian prison. Is it polite to laugh at your own? I'm sorry.
No, also the radio stories that you came up with as well, all just straight out of. Was there a thing that inspired those, like the sawhorse that saved Thanksgiving?
No, I just had to come up with these goofy things. But I went to the Library of Congress, listening room down in the deep bowels of the building, and listened to the recordings of Uncle Sam's Forest Rangers and some of the government-produced, radio shows at the time. And they were dramatic radio shows like Uncle Sam's Forest Rangers, and, adventures, blah, blah. That was produced to help, all kind of things like that. There were how-to shows on the radio, the Fix-It Hour, and people would write in, how can I fix the rung on a chair, the classic question. And fix this or fix that, and Mr. Fix-It would tell you how to do it. And it was all on the radio, just like we have on TV, but it was radio. So that was fun, going through the old radio schedules and listening to the old shows.
Have you considered producing the scripts for real, doing like a podcast radio show with the actual scripts acted out?
I would too. Well, now, yeah, I'll do that in my spare time. Yes, people like to say. That's funny. Could do, yeah, Grandpa Sam's Wood Shop of the Air.
Absolutely. I'd listen.
Well, yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, when I do I do a lot of live. Well, I used to do a lot of live talks, and there's not a lot of room for stand-up woodworking comedy. But I tell the story about my great uncle, Calvin, who I will tell this as if it were true, and how they never had to make anything; they just did the sound effects. Pretty great. They made wonderful things, but they never existed. See what else happened. Yes.
You've written a lot of how-to books, woodwork. I mean, you have. I looked earlier at exactly how many books you have. Quite a few. What was this like? Was this more fun or less fun or non-comparable?
Yeah, it's more. No, it was great fun to do. And I had high hopes for it, It says, the movie's going to be great, which you have to believe. And studying, I'm looking over here at a full bookcase of books on writing and the secrets of the novel and how to get past the agent screening and your screen, just tons and tons of books on writing. But I think they're pretty comparable. Any writing is like, you stare at the keyboard until blood comes out of your forehead. That's writing. I'm doing right now a book, nonfiction on Civil War issues, Civil War letters. So I'm taking a real departure now, and that's immense amounts of research. But AI has come to the rescue. Boy, what a difference it makes. If you write historical stuff and you're a professor, you have lots of grad student assistants. I do not have grad student assistants. So having the AI research is just incredible. So really looking forward to getting more into that. All of this work, let me tell you, it was interrupted when the flood hit in July, and I've been doing nothing but sheetrock and tearing out fiberglass. Yeah,
so
quite an adventure.
When you say you're writing a book, nonfiction on Civil War letters,
yeah.
What do you mean by that? Is it just like a historical, like it's not woodworking related?
I'll tell you the story. No,
yeah.
What it is, all my great-great-grandmother's Civil War letters were transcribed in the 1950s into a book that I got when I was a kid, and all the family members got one. And here's the incident that really stuck in my head. My great uncle was a captain in the 30th North Carolina, and November 9th in Virginia, 1863, was holding a line on the Rappahannock. Union forces came through with a night attack, heavy cannon on the ridge, totally routed the Confederate forces, and my great uncle was shot through the legs. Union captain rode up to him, and this is all in the letters because somebody is writing. This is what happened to him. A Union officer rode up, said, "Captain, I'm sorry to see you're injured. Here, drink this; it will help you." And he reaches down with his canteen of whiskey. He said water at the time, so it wouldn't upset my great-great-grandmother. But nevertheless, as he was reaching down, that Union officer took a bullet and was shot and fell and died beside my great uncle, who later died in the hospital in Washington, D.C. So I always knew, listen to this now, I always grew up with the story of the good Yankee. There was a good Yankee who gave your great uncle, water when he was wounded. Well, with the Google and the internet, I found out who he was. Nobody's known. They just knew the good Yankee. It was Captain Timothy L. Maynard of Pittsburgh, of the 63rd. Anyway, so I found all this out because of the internet. I've got a 150-year-old debt I've got to pay for the family because this Union officer was kind to my great uncle. So this is all in the letters and all these things about dealing with, they were slaveholders, how they were, how their psychology worked with that. Sorry, I've gone off on it. You can see I'm into it. You talk to any writer about what they're working, they'll go on forever. That's what I'm doing now.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
sorry,
interesting.
I did go off on it.
No, that's an incredible story.
Yeah, finding the good Yankee on the Googling him. I Googled the Yankee. I found him. And just because everything's been digitized. Yeah. Every newspaper from 1860 has been digitized, from all history has been digitized now. You can search everything.
How'd you? How'd you actually find him? Was it like you knew that he was shot on this day? Or
what I typed, I said, I was just sitting there at the computer, thinking about it, and I said, I wonder if I'm going to Google something. I said, Kelly's Ford, where it happened, November 7th, 1863, water, and up comes the record, the memoir, whatever, of the 63rd Pennsylvania Volunteers. And it brings me to that page, and it says, the only casualty at this engagement was Captain Timothy L. Maynard, killed while rendering aid to a wounded rebel officer.
Oh.
And so that was it. You just Googled it, and it came up. And damned if I didn't find he's buried in Milwaukee, and on his tombstone, it says, killed while rendering aid to a wounded rebel officer. So I'm trying to track down his family. So, my great uncle was the captain who was shot in the legs and later died. He was just graduated from the university here, was going to be a teacher. Timothy Maynard, the Union officer, was a school principal. So these two guys are lying there dying of, and they're school teachers. What the hell,
What the hell is
Department of War, everybody.
Yeah. That's a crazy story, though. I can't believe you were able to, close that loop after, however, so many years.
So tracking down the family, and then one of the sons, one of the family members, was they moved out west, and one of them said he was, had inherited his grandfather. I have planes that were made. Timothy L. Maynard worked in a plane making factory. I have wooden planes that were made probably, under his hands in Massachusetts. He later became a school teacher. It's crazy. And the tool chest was in a Idaho newspaper as being coming, to somebody in the family got his, anyway, this is his brother. I don't know. I'm trying to track down all the family members to thank him. Mm-hmm. Trying to track down all the black family members, as they were called. It was weird, but to them it all, somehow it made sense. Our lives have to make sense to us, and so that's a lot of this is figuring the cognitive dissonance of these folks we're dealing with. She's writing about my great-great-grandmother. She's writing about the people who are shirkers. They're not supporting the nation. They need to, they're trying to be individual and not obeying orders in the army. They need to, there's more, she writes to them, there's more honor in obedience and discipline than there is in rebellion. But she's a Confederate, for heaven's sakes. And she's writing to So how people were able to hold these different ideas in their head at the same time. So I have a lot of hope for this being an interesting bit of reading. We'll see.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah. We'll see. Well,
I mean, it's universal. Like.
Yeah. What's funny is, I talked to the publishers, or the agents, and they're looking at the publishing record, and they says, couldn't you do another woodworking book? That would, they're because you sell into your last sales. You know how that works. They're going to look and see how your sales were on the last book you did, and that's how many you're going to be down from that, and that's how they figure whether to go with you or not.
You're just forming the basis for a prequel to Calvin Cobb.
There you go.
That's what I'm saying. It's interesting because we talk a little bit about like our modern, very like divisive era that we live in. Not going to get too much into it, but then we're talking about Calvin Cobb, like the pre-World War II era, and now also like the Civil War era. It's just like repeating over and over again. But yeah, prequel.
Yeah, it was seems to be ever thus, does it not?
Yeah.
Oh well, we're good. I'm reading everybody, so I got Heartwood Wood Shop. I've got Bevel Up Woodworks. Let's see who else has it. Shallow Creek Woodworks. All right. I had Deep Creek, definitely here. Oh man, I remember my first woodworking book I took flew up to see if Fine Woodworking wanted to publish it. They passed on it, so oh well. So if you're a writer there, I could let me encourage you as best I can on that tough road.
Do you outside of like the book thing, like do you have any like you're talking about pushing through on like your publishing, which is very hard, but in terms of like the television stuff, I'm curious like how you broke through on that, or like especially because like you existed in an age before like social media where like it's really easy to get visibility that way, but I don't know if you had anything you wanted to share on that.
Okay, I was at a PBS convention, and I got on the elevator at the PBS thing, and on the elevator with me was a guy that looked over at me and said, "Oh, you're the wood guy. Yeah, you don't know me, but I made a big difference in your life." Said, yeah, as we're going up. Yeah, I'm the guy. I choose. I get all the tapes that come in from the stations who think they've got a show that should go national, and I had like a bad burrito or something, and I had to have, I had to go. I couldn't look, because I just look at the tape. I look at them, I throw them. Look at them, I throw them. I put them in the machine, nothing, throw it. And I had to go to the bathroom real bad. I put my secretary, she was watching them, just to keep going through them. And I came back, and she was laughing. And I said, "What? You won't believe it. This guy cut himself, and he's bleeding all over the work." And he sat down and he looked at it, and he said, "God damn, he did." Okay. And I put you in the keeper pile. So that's what I did to your life. And then the elevator door opened, and he walked out. So it's just luck, You never know.
Or getting injured on camera in a woodworking
if you offer you got to offer real blood. If you want to, yeah. No,
Okay, write that down.
Yeah, what a world it is now with everybody, has access to it. But it was, and the other thing, it was very, there's just not that many opportunities. There were how many channels in most people when it was broadcast TV. And I run into a whole lot of people now who much older now, they're 40s, and so say to me, "Oh gosh, I used to watch your show when I was a little kid with my grandfather because he liked this," and it came on Saturday, and we would sit together, and they remember that togetherness of sitting with their grandfather or sitting with their dad. Young women in particular, they would sit with their dad and watch this show and see if this fool's going to cut himself again. And they just remember that time together. And so, I have that association with them. You never know. You never know how it's going to be.
I had one very selfish question. This is one of my favorite books of all time. And you were a consultant on it?
I guess I was. Yeah, I have.
So did you drive around the Northeast and look at beautiful homes and?
No, that's way old. No, that's the.
So the homes of New York and Connecticut.
Yeah, no. This is the best gig you can get, let me tell you. If you can get writing like I did for Megan recently and for an upcoming book with Elia Basari, writing the preface or the foreword for books, it's great because you get full credit at the Library of Congress. And you can see, so you can go and look up your name and you will have credit for all the books that you've written, particularly that series. There's like 23 books in that series. Well, I wrote, a little preface for each one. So it has me down as, yeah, so it's great. It's a great gig. Oh, man, all you have to do is write that 500 words and you're done.
That's awesome because I did historic preservation in the area for a long time. That's how I got started in woodworking. And this book was one of my all-time drive out to see that house and admire it. And there's a few near me in here, so I always wondered. I saw your name on there. I was like, I wonder if he just drove around and was like, good one. That's the one.
No. That was written way before my time. It's so hard to believe. That's a good gig. I need to look at that. I think it's sitting over here on this shelf. I've got. You see the shelf here. Let's see. I don't know if you can see. I've got all my clothes up here because they were flooded. But sitting on the bookshelf. It's great. Well, thank you all. I appreciate you all tuning in. I hope you made it through the book and enjoyed it. I appreciate it. Well, thank you. Golly, thank you all.
Thanks so much for joining. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a fun read.
Well, excellent. And if Taunton Productions wants to do the movie, we'll work on the casting together. How about that? We'll all do that first party, and it'd be great.
Nice.
Thanks, Roy.
Thanks for
being
being
here.
here.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it so much.